Okay, so I'm going to be talking to you about how our students and families experience traumatic stress and how we as an MSA family can begin dismantling white supremacy. A lot of the challenges I have are for my white MSA family members. Dwayne Reed, an educator and an activist in Chicago, said that white supremacy won't die until white people see it as a white issue they have to solve rather than a black issue they need to empathize with. So if this is our issue, then that means we got to put in the work. So how does racism, and in particular the racial unrest and police brutality of the last few months, affect our students and families? Trauma, in a nutshell, is a particularly distressing event, usually involving violence or the threat of violence, and involves an intense sensation of fear, terror, and helplessness. Now, how we become traumatized is usually, there's a big misconception around it. Usually people think that you need to directly come in contact with this event. But exposure to a traumatic stressor indirectly can also be traumatizing. So hearing about a family member or a friend's experience with violence or the threat of violence, watching the news, seeing photos of abuse, watching videos of people being murdered, all of that is traumatizing. So trauma does a lot of things to our brain and to our bodies, but one of the more profound things it does is affects the ways that we think about ourselves. It affects our own narrative of the world. And so some of the common narratives that come from traumatic events is the world is an actively dangerous place. I am not safe. I cannot let down my guard. I am the only one who's ever experienced this. I'm completely alone. I am dirty, broken, wrong. No one cares about what happened to me, and so I don't matter to anyone. I am not worthy of connection and belonging. And that is the narrative a lot of your students will walk into the classroom with this year for lots of reasons, but this summer in particular. So a lot of my white MSA family members, I think, can relate to this, that white people will see what's going on in the world, they'll see what's going on in our community, and hear that what kind of beliefs our students have, and then they will think to themselves, what can I do? And Adrienne Marie Brown has this great quote and mandate for white people. She says, where we are born into privilege, we are charged with dismantling any myth of supremacy. She also took the mandate Mary Hooks gave to Black people in this time and asked that the white people in her life align with it. And she says that she wants us to put your lifetime in the service of undoing the work of your ancestors, earning the respect of future generations, and being willing to be transformed in the service of the work. So what does that mean? Where does dismantling myths of supremacy and undoing the work of our ancestors start? You're not going to like the answer. Most people like to do a lot of action to help numb themselves to their own feelings of guilt and shame. But ultimately, the first place we have to start is just sitting with our own selves. So before we can actually do helpful, meaningful anti-racist work, we first have to examine, own, and transform ourselves. And it's going to be uncomfortable, but you have to be willing to do the work for yourself and by yourself before your attempts at any anti-racist actions will be helpful and not just selfish acts trying to assuage your own guilt. You will re-traumatize the very people you're hoping to support if you don't first dismantle the white supremacy in you. There are many ways to have your classroom be a space of dismantling white supremacy, but the main one I want to challenge you with is your classroom culture, because it is too important to get wrong. Remember that the trauma narratives that your scholars and their parents come into your classroom with every single day. And here are 3 ways that you can bring relentless focus and curiosity to protect the mental health and well-being of your students and their families. Number 1, build trust. It's going to take consistency and a lot of time because, frankly, the world is a dangerous place for Black people, and the threat of violence is traumatic and pervasive. So you're going to need to spend a lot of time building trust and communicating explicitly and implicitly that you want all of your students to claim their joy, their dignity, and their humanity. Number 2, continue to bring relentless curiosity to your own self. Think about the stories you tell yourself about your students and their parents. As Ibram Kendi would say, the label of racist and anti-racist is just a sticky name tag. It can be peeled off and reapplied minute to minute. So be relentless in questioning your own beliefs, your actions, and your words, and what you permit and promote in and outside of the school. And 3, make sure that every single thing in your classroom communicates that all of your children are loved, that they are valued, that they are important. Posters, materials, books, videos, your language, your actions, your discipline practices. You can use all of those to say your experience matters. You are seen and loved. All of our kids deserve to know that they are imperfect, they are wired for struggle, and they are beyond a shadow of a doubt worthy of love and belonging.